on your Alexa device. Just say enable Loughrea Community Radio. Loughrea Community Radio. The Business Show on Loughrea Community Radio. Proudly sponsored by JFW Renewables, your solar energy specialists. See jfwrenewables.ie for more. Join us on Loughrea's weekly business show, covering various enterprising topics, business news, key trends, and expert opinion. The Business Show, Sundays, 9 a.m., right here on Loughrea Community Radio. Proudly sponsored by JFW Renewables, your solar energy specialists.
Welcome back to Loughrea Community Radio with myself and Maureen, and also joined now by the fabulous Dinny Collins. Morning, Dinny.
Good morning, girls.
How are you keeping?
I'm great, thanks. Well, full disclosure, I was at a wedding yesterday.
Okay, I also have full disclosure. This is my first time using all these fabulous buttons on the desk here, so thank you for bearing with us, Dinny. And I have listened to your podcast quite a bit, and I have to say I don't think it will knock a stir out of you, wedding or no wedding, to be chatting with us today.
I'll do my best.
So good morning, Dinny. My name is Maureen Fines, and I know nothing about Bitcoin, so I'm very excited for this interview.
Yeah, what happened a couple of weeks ago was we were talking about something totally unrelated, and Bitcoin came into the conversation. And next of all, we started getting text messages in. People were asking about Bitcoin and what to do with Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? Can you invest in it? So straight away, we knew that there was a lot of public interest, and we were very lucky then to get yourself to agree to come on and chat with us. I think the very first question for all of the newbies to Bitcoin is, what is Bitcoin? I mean, can it be easily explained?
You have to take a deep breath and go, it takes a little bit of time to understand it, but what I'll do is, I'll do my best to give a quick explanation of Bitcoin. So what Bitcoin is it's the transition to digitization. So in our world, we used to have filing cabinets and we digitized them, and now we have the cloud. In our world, we used to have physical music like CDs or records or DVDs, and we digitized that to digital music. We used to have physical maps. We used to have a paper map in our car when we were trying to get somewhere. It was a physical thing, and we digitized that to a digital map. We used to have offices, actual physical buildings where we had conferences, and to a huge degree, we've digitized that now through the likes of Zoom and Skype and things like that, that we have these digital meetings instead. And we have physical gold, which is a physical product that you can hold in your hand, like these are physical things I mentioned. And Bitcoin is a digital version of physical gold, and in that it shares all of the characteristics of gold, but it improves upon them. It's 10 times better on most of them. Just like digital music is 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times better than physical music, well, digital gold, Bitcoin, is 100 times or possibly 1,000 times better than physical gold. And if you want me just to run through maybe these characteristics and we can look at them.
Yes.
So gold is durable, and that's one of the great characteristics of gold, is that it's not destroyed. For something to be money, it has to last. And Bitcoin is a software. So a software doesn't exist in the physical world. So it doesn't suffer from Newtonian physics, so it's insanely durable. Gold is divisible, okay? But it's difficult to divide up gold. If I have a gold coin, and let's say if I have a 1 ounce gold coin that's worth about 1,800 euros, I have to sell that whole coin. I can't melt the gold down. But if I have 1,800 euros worth of Bitcoin, I can break it up any way I want. I can sell a penny's worth, or a 5 or a 10 or a 100. It doesn't matter. Gold is portable, but that was one of the problems with gold, is its portability, in that it costs about 1% of the value of the gold to move it across the Atlantic. So if you move your gold across the Atlantic 100 times, it's cost you the whole price of your gold. You've lost all your gold. Bitcoin is insanely portable. And an example I like to give is, let's say, I wish I did, but if I had €1 million worth of gold, and I'm here in Ireland and I'm moving down to Sydney, I can get my gold transported down to another vault down there, and it'll cost me tens of thousands. It'll take weeks, maybe months for it to happen, and there'll be so much paperwork. If I have €1 million worth in Bitcoin, and I want to do the same, I can literally do it instantly. Possibly while I'm doing this interview on the radio, I can just have my phone on the other hand, clicking away, and it's done. It's done almost instantly, and it might have cost me €2. So in a world where we need portability, Bitcoin's insanely portable. Gold has, fungibility, and Bitcoin has fungibility. And the most important characteristic, I feel, for gold, and why gold has been a store of value for thousands of years, is its scarcity. And what Bitcoin has done is Bitcoin's improved upon that, and Bitcoin is finite. So gold is scarce, meaning we'll always find more gold. In 100 years, we'll still be finding more gold. But Bitcoin is finite in that there's only 21 million coins, and once they're all mined, that's it. And think of that like a Mona Lisa painting. It's a one-off. People like it, and then ask yourself, what's the value of that? The value is infinity because it's so scarce. The man who created it is dead, so we can't get another one. So it's just got this infinite value that it'll continue to appreciate in value forever. So to sum all that up, to me, what Bitcoin is a savings technology. Okay, now we'll probably transition into why humans need a savings technology, or just somewhere where we can exchange our time for money, and then we just need to be able to keep the money. In the system we have at the moment, we can't just keep the money, because if you just exchange your time for money, leave your money in the bank, over a long enough period of time, that money trends to zero because our currency, because of inflation.
So
Bitcoin.
Sorry, Dinny. Yeah, that's a really great explanation. But one of our texters just texted in to say, all sounds terrific, but what about security?
Great question. And here's the irony. People are very concerned with Bitcoin's security, and so they should be, because it's money. Okay, and money is really important to us. We all need it for survival. Bitcoin's network, okay? Bitcoin is this supercomputer. It's the largest supercomputer in the world, okay? So that's how powerful this network is, or how secure this network is. Bitcoin's network, its computer, is 200 million, okay? 200 million times more powerful than the world's second largest supercomputer. So that is the security of this network that, people who don't understand Bitcoin, they don't get that. This is potentially the most secure thing on the planet. Because it's new, it's only got a 13-year history. We've got to look at both sides. It's not guaranteed, but to this date, Bitcoin has never suffered a hack, being hacked.
So there is no security really, but then I suppose you could say the same thing about gold, because if gold is not finite, the price and the cost of it can go up and down. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Are you talking the actual security, or are you talking about price?
Well, say if I buy a gold coin and I stuff that under my mattress, I physically have that gold coin. So,
sure.
And apart from being robbed, somebody could break into my house and steals that gold coin, then it's gone. But otherwise, I have that gold coin. And as you say, I can put it in a vault. And I get your argument about transferring, but in this day and age, you don't really need to transfer. If I want to move to Sydney, a bank here will hold it for me. So, I can have that physical gold coin. But with this, it's on my computer, it's on my phone.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we're talking about the transition from physical to digital, and that's cool, because we all have to. That is the biggest stumbling block to someone if you can understand Bitcoin or get there. What I would say is we've all made the transition. We lived in the physical world and we're transitioning to the digital world. But there's generations behind us that don't see a difference between physical and digital. They're one and the same. Like kids, they ask for Christmas presents. They want skins for computer games. They want FIFA credits. Like, when you break that down, what they're looking for is something that doesn't exist in the physical world. But they value that the exact same as they could have got a bicycle, but they prefer this digital thing that doesn't actually exist. Us that are a little bit older and we've started living in the physical world, and we've been sort of transitioning and we trying to make that transition. We have to say, well, because I can't hold my Bitcoin in my hand, technically, does it exist or is it secure? One thing I will say is that with Bitcoin does a couple of amazing things or that came about from it. And one of them was it's money that you can own. So you can actually take custody rights of your Bitcoin. You can transfer your Bitcoin onto a little hardware wallet, which is like a USB device, and you can then hold it in your hand. And when it comes to everything that we as humans can own, Bitcoin provides you with some of the strongest property rights because it is a property in that it's it's almost uncensorable to take your Bitcoin from you. Everything else can be taken: your life, your freedom, your property, your physical property, your gold coin. But your Bitcoin is one of the hardest things. And although that doesn't really matter for us here in Ireland, we've got very strong property rights, but the majority of the world doesn't have strong property rights.
Yeah, wow, that is fascinating. And I take your point, like kids these days, they literally embrace everything digital, everything technology. I mean, when Revolut came about, I remember my niece was saving for a holiday and I was saying, what's this Revolut like? Don't put too much money in it. Who's who's actually, is it the central bank? Who's regulating this guy, these Revolut people? Now Revolut is the most commonly used thing. Like kids have it, Revolut Junior. So these kids are going to grow up with that digitalization. Which brings me to my next question. Like all week, everyone's talking about AIB's reverse on the cashless society. So how do you actually spend? I own this, it has the best property rights ever. How do you spend it? Can I buy a house with it?
Good question. You can buy a house with Bitcoin, but I suppose we'll answer the question first, Dinny. Bitcoin is the most liquid thing on the planet. And that means it's very easy to spend your Bitcoin or to exchange your Bitcoin. So the way you spend your Bitcoin, there's a couple of ways, I suppose. If whoever you want to purchase a good or service of will accept Bitcoin, well, you can do a transaction there, it's peer-to-peer. Some companies, every month, more companies open up and say, we're accepting Bitcoin, possibly largely just for a bit of PR. But the most common way that people would spend their Bitcoin is just the same way as you purchase your Bitcoin. You go to a crypto exchange or you go to a crypto broker and you'll buy some Bitcoin through the broker, you'll exchange euros for Bitcoin, and it's the same process in reverse. You'll send your Bitcoin to an exchange or you'll send your Bitcoin to a broker, they'll exchange it for euros and the euros will land back in your bank account. However, with Bitcoin, people get hung up on it being a currency because it's called cryptocurrency. But at this stage, it's although it is a currency in 2 countries in the world right now, I don't think of it as a currency. I think of it more as digital gold. And the reason I own it is as an investment vehicle. So I don't need to be able to spend my Bitcoin because it's an investment vehicle. I own it to protect and generate wealth. So I can't spend my Tesla stock or I can't buy anything with my gold coin. And just like that, I can't buy most things with my Bitcoin, but to me, that's not really what my Bitcoin is for.
Okay, so I suppose the name Bitcoin is a bit misleading. It's actually a savings, as you said, a savings technology or an investment vehicle, the same as you would use it to invest in a company.
Yeah, well, I suppose you could argue that point because, Bitcoin is many things. And this is why it's difficult to understand. It is a currency. I'd be wrong to say it's not a currency because it is a currency in parts of the world and it was designed as a currency. But it's also a money, and money and currency are slightly different. Like currency is what we spend, money is what we should save in, because money doesn't. Money has the characteristic of store of value. Currency doesn't have the characteristic of store of value. They both share the other two, which is unit of account and medium exchange. So Bitcoin is a money, Bitcoin is a currency, Bitcoin is a digital property, Bitcoin is an investment asset, and Bitcoin is a savings technology. And I suppose Bitcoin is subjective. That as you understand this and your understanding grows and changes, it becomes different things. But I like the baby step of, well, Bitcoin is digital gold. It's just like this gold coin, which is a digital thing I can hold in my hand, and Bitcoin is just a digital version of it, just like digital music, maps, meetings, the cloud, and everything else we've digitized.
Fabulous. There's another couple of questions in here, Dinny, that they're flying in. The first one is, I trade on Coinbase. What does Dinny think of that marketplace?
The first thing I would say to any beginner listeners and experienced people with Bitcoin and crypto is, well, answer the question, Dinny. Sorry, I'm such a waffler. Coinbase is a publicly traded company. So to become a public company, there has to be a large amount of auditing and regulatory compliance. So Coinbase would be a fantastic exchange and one that I would use. Just to touch on the trading point, people think that Bitcoin is about trading it, which means you're trying to buy it and sell it, and you're trying to ride the prices and the waves, and you're looking at charts and all this sort of stuff. At Crypto With Dinny, we don't get involved in any of that nonsense because 9 out of 10 traders lose all their money. 9 out of 10. So they're very bad odds. And even most of these platforms, when you read them, they'll say the majority of our customers will lose money by doing this. So there's no need for me to trade Bitcoin. I accumulate it. As I say, I'm an investor. Investors are thinking in 5-year time frames or 10-year time frames, not 5 minutes or 5 days like a trader. Okay, so I'm just accumulating Bitcoin with the understanding that every 4 years, Bitcoin sets higher highs, and this is because Bitcoin's basically a money that's programmed to book in value over time, because every 4 years, it gets twice as scarce. And scarcity and value are really, really interlocked, okay? In that if I'm in a small town and I'm the only barber, well, I have a great business. If suddenly there's 10 more barbers, so barbershops aren't as scarce, well, now my business isn't as valuable. So scarcity and value are really, really intertwined and related. And with Bitcoin's ability to get twice as scarce every 4 years, it causes this price rally because people are wanting to buy Bitcoin. Even if the demand remains constant, you have the supply available. So price has to get bidded up. And we don't see that. We see this golden situation of Bitcoin's adoption is rising and that more people are choosing to own this digital scarce asset. And it's getting scarcer and scarcer over time. So me as an investor looking out, in a decade's time, I see it doesn't matter to me whether I'm buying Bitcoin at 20 grand or 60 grand or 15 grand. It really makes no difference because my play is at the end of the decade, it's orders of magnitude more valuable. Now, it's an investment asset. It's not a guarantee. The past, the future, you've got to give people the disclosures and the understandings. But, for me, I say to people, do a little bit of work yourself on Bitcoin. Don't look at newspaper clickbait headlines because for 13 years they've kept you poor. They've kept you from owning the highest performing asset on the planet. And do a little bit of your own work to understand this thing.
It's so true. It's so true. And there's another question here which kind of relates to that. Banks don't seem to like Bitcoin and often try and block the purchase of it. What's the best way to purchase it without encountering problems?
Yeah, and that makes total sense. Like, I had, and I'll just give you a story to help people understand that. I ran a successful fitness business, and for almost 15 years. And I remember when FlyFit's in Ireland now, a good bit of time, but FlyFit were opening up in my town. Now, FlyFit were definitely a much better product than I had. They were much more financed. All I had was the personal approach. So, of course, I was saying to my members, they won't ask you how you are. They won't, I was basically bashing FlyFit because if they were a direct competitor to me, and in fact, they really challenged my business because they were orders of magnitude able to provide a service much cheaper than I could as a micro business. So incumbents are obviously not going to be pro something that's going to disrupt their business, their technology. It's always been that way with every technology. When the car first came out, the horse and cart people were rallying and saying these things are so dangerous. And originally with cars, a man had to walk in front of it with a flag waving it, and that was all because that was just because political lobbying from the incumbents of the horse trade. So it's always like that with new technologies, and it's just part of the journey. But if the technology is strong enough and innovative enough, they succeed regardless. They start to get, like Bitcoin at the moment is getting political clout, that even in the American administration, there's a lot of politicians. 25% of Americans own Bitcoin right now. That's a quarter of the population. That's huge voting clout. And with that comes politicians say, oh, Genie, there's a huge community here, a hive community. If I, for my political gain, because, we all operate out of self-interest. So by a politician actually becoming pro-Bitcoin, they realize they get this army of people who are all so passionate about it behind them. So Bitcoin is getting more political clout. And then where would you buy your Bitcoin? There's loads of different ways where you can do it with a SEPA transfer instead of using your actual physical card. One little tip maybe for people listening, because we didn't mention Revolut. A Revolut card actually seems to work on exchanges, so people have Revolut. But if you're not sure or you'd like me to recommend a broker, just drop me an email to hello@Crypto With Dinny, and I'll be happy to send you on a broker recommendation.
That would be brilliant. Well, you use the word disruption. So do you see yourself as a disruptor? Because this Bitcoin and all these cryptocurrencies are disrupting, aren't they? The normal way, as you said, they're digitalizing money. So are they digitalizing currency? They're digitalizing investments. And it is like, it's actually a property. So it's a huge disruption to what we're used to. Do you see yourself as a disruptor? You owned a gym. How did you actually get into it yourself? And what drew you in?
I suppose what drew me in, it's kind of funny, and it comes from fitness. With my experience in fitness, I always knew there was something wrong, because when you go down the fitness rabbit hole and you see the foods that we sell and the advertisements and what we've done to ourselves since the 70s, in the 70s, we came off sound money. So our money was backed by gold. People say Bitcoin's backed by nothing. They don't understand the paper money in their wallet is actual paper that's backed by nothing. And Bitcoin is backed by energy, just like gold is backed by energy. But in the 70s, we went on to the fiat standard, so money that was backed by nothing. And in the 70s, if you look at photographs from the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to today, you'll see that the average human, beach photos, we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, if you just rationally think for yourself, how is this? We have much better technology, education, quality. How have we deteriorated our health so much? And it just comes down to the fiat standard that when the money was backed by nothing, price signals changed. And you have all these companies that are able to grow and manipulate price and come up with terrible products. And then information is even science itself, because science relies on funding and funding relies on political lobbying. And, the whole system just leads to bad information. And here we are, like we had a food pyramid since the 70s, which is like, if you understand nutrition, like if you feed a human and tell them to eat 9 processed carbs a day, this is like the base layer of your nutrition. You're going to create a fat human by doing that. I don't care how much exercise they do. So that was always my question was, how did we get here? And it was only then I started to understand gold, and then I started to understand money. And it's a long journey to understand that our fiat system, basically, it caused misinformation in all sorts of factors. And Bitcoin is the solution. So while I don't see myself as some sort of anarchist rogue disruptor, rather just like how I got into fitness was I broke my back, and rehabilitation, and made me think. Not only did I get out of bed and get walking again, but I had this confidence, this energy, this positivity and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to do this for a job, because my job before that was steel work. My spine is still quite damaged, so I can't lift steel anymore. Wow. I can teach other people to rehabilitate themselves like I did. So I was really passionate about the fitness industry, still am. And when I as I deepened my understanding of Bitcoin, I think, wow, half of the adult population on this planet is unbanked. And what Bitcoin relies on, it's a bottom-up movement. And my job is just to educate. It's not to like try and convince people to buy Bitcoin, more so to educate them on it and let them make their own decision for themselves. Because I believe Bitcoin is going to make our planet a much better place. It's going to give property rights to people who don't have it. It's going to bank people who don't have it, because mobile phone saturation is pretty much worldwide, and so is internet. But yet half of the adult population on this planet aren't banked, which means they have no ability to save, which means they have no ability to improve their quality of life or the quality of life of the generations that come after them. They're just stuck. Now, we have property rights and we have banking rights here in Ireland, and we just take it for granted. But the majority of the world doesn't have that, and Bitcoin fixes this, because it's just one open, permissionless network. So you don't have to rely on, a large bank going, oh, well, these customers are it's not profitable for us to bank this country, and therefore they're left out. So for me, Bitcoin it's something that I'm passionate about. And while I don't see myself as an anarchist rogue disruptor, I just see myself as someone, a Bitcoiner. I think every Bitcoiner's duty is to teach other people about it and share it, because Bitcoin for me has improved the quality of my life, took away all my financial worries or worries about the future. And why wouldn't you share some, just like I shared fitness with people, why wouldn't I be passionate to try and teach people about this technology? Everything as I say to people, everything you think about Bitcoin is probably wrong if you do some of the research yourself.
Yeah, well,
you'll see.
You make some really interesting points, and I think one that I really picked up on is that the fiat currency, if you ask people what that is, they probably don't understand it. So, it's the same, I suppose, as Bitcoin. I'm not sure that everything you say is true, but I will take your word for it. You're very passionate, and if your purpose is to educate people, I think you're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, it's just fascinating, and definitely your passion really comes across. With an email here off Carol. She says, I'm glued to this interview. I love Dinny's passion about his asset class. Can you ask him what is the best way to buy Bitcoin, i.e. buy as a one-off and hold, or buy a little bit maybe each week or month? Thank you.
Brilliant. The best way to buy Bitcoin, there's two ways. You can just buy Bitcoin today, and I would say forget about it for at least 5 years. If you're not going to hold it for 5 years, you're probably better off not buying it today. You can do that, or you can dollar cost average. For me personally, I think that in Crypto With Dinny, we teach people to retire early by building these alternative pension plans around Bitcoin. And the way we do it is the same way as you do your normal pension plan. If any of you guys, your wages come out, but you're paid into your pension every month. So that's how I accumulate and build these Bitcoin plans, is we take a small percentage, because we understand risk, and obviously I can't give financial advice here on the call, because it's not individual. But you have to understand risk, and the risk that comes with owning Bitcoin is the first thing. But you decide on a small percentage of your wealth, and you would allocate every month, and you're just saving Bitcoin. So, and then for the lump sum purchase, I'll give an example of how I got my parents to own some Bitcoin. So they're traditional Irish parents, hard working, both my mum and my dad. That was my passion, to learn money and become. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be rich, because I've seen my parents struggle for money their entire life. It was always a conversation in the house, and they worked really hard. My dad worked 6 days of work, 9 to 9, out in the shed. He'd done steel work, and my passion was, I need to get rich so I can just look after my parents. So that was my my motivation in the beginning. But my parents had savings in the bank. Okay, they're both retired now, but they had savings in the bank, and I was, because I understand money and inflation, and I was like, well, inflation is going to take away their savings. In 20 years, they're going to lose. In 10 years, they lose half the value of their savings at the inflation levels we're at now. So you lose half your wealth over a decade just by holding it in the bank doing nothing. So I went to them, and of course I tried to explain Bitcoin loads of times. But my dad's in his 70s, so he doesn't understand the digital world. He doesn't have a Facebook. He calls them the McGoogles. He says, tell them nothing. And he likes being outside looking up at the stars. So he's a man of the physical world, and that's fine. But I said to him, I said, can I have 5% of your life savings? And I'm going to buy Bitcoin with it. I said, do you trust me? And they said they did. And my rationale was, if I lose 5% of my parents' life savings, it's not going to impact the quality of their retirement whatsoever. It's just a small haircut. But that 5% of Bitcoin that we bought a couple of years ago has appreciated in value. So while the 95% of the cash that they hold now buys them much less stuff, the little bit of Bitcoin that I bought now buys more stuff. So it's basically saving. That little 5% that I risked is helping protect their money. And for me, that was just an easy way of and to people, I'd say, you don't need to be as aggressive as 5%. You can start at 0.1% of your life savings. And, and actually, if I lose 0.1% of my life savings, will it impact me going forward? Now, understand that you could, because Bitcoin, again, full disclosure, it's only a 13-year-old technology. It's amazing technology. It's got the smartest people in the world working on it, but it's only 13 years. And I suppose we're early days. We're like the internet was in 97 is where we are. So we're clunky. Bitcoin's it is a bit difficult to use. What I would say to listeners, because and I'm very bullish on it, so I don't like to get people overhyped and then push them out into the real world and set them up for a disaster. Education is the most important thing. I do a free Bitcoin Basics workshop. Any of the listeners are welcome. Jump off my website, grab a spot there every second Thursday. But education, not just with me, go and do your own education with other people. Bitcoin education is critical. So before you spend your money on Bitcoin, I say to people, spend your time on it. Understand the asset a little bit more. And then you'll know how to manage it and protect yourself. And then you can spend a little bit on it. And as your understanding grows, perhaps you want to invest a little bit more in it. And the last thing I just want to mention, this in case we don't get to it, is crypto scams, Bitcoin scams. It's so easy to scam people in this space, and it's so unfortunate. And I'm seeing people suffering from this all the time. Now, I think this is what I would call a national duty of our governments to educate people on this, because people aren't being educated on it. And the amazing thing about Bitcoin is, okay, it's money that you can own, all right? But that sets people up who don't understand it, because if you get scammed through Bitcoin, you can't get your money back. Bitcoin is like digital cash, okay? So it's just like if you hand some randomer on the street €500 and he disappears and you don't know who he is. You can't undo that transaction. Well, Bitcoin is the same. So people need to be careful. Only use legitimate exchanges like maybe a Coinbase or the bigger platforms. I don't want to sort of name any particular ones because I've no affiliation to any of them.
I was going to ask, so is there legitimate ones, and which ones could people go for a source of education rather than just, are there particular sites that people can go to actually get some education about it?
I think they're all around Bitcoin. Dinny is a fantastic.
So there is a text in asking for that, so we will share that in our promos later, and the link to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a site called hope.com, because one of the a man who's very pro Bitcoin and really understands it, a rocket scientist, his name is Michael Saylor, but he bought up a load of, because he understands value and digital value, he bought up a lot of names when the internet came out. So he owns Michael.com. And what value is Michael.com? That URL is worth a lot. Michael Jordan might want to buy that for a couple of million. But he also owns Hope.com, because he thinks Bitcoin is hope. So if any of our listeners Google Hope.com or jump onto Hope.com, it's an amazing resource of all Bitcoin education. And also, I suppose, it would be a shame not to mention cryptowithdinny.com as well.
Absolutely.
The reason I was saying about you, Dinny, is because in your podcast you have some great interviews with a whole host of people all around discussing the Bitcoin. There's great education in that.
Yeah, Crypto With Dinny YouTube podcast, or you'll get us on Spotify either.
Yeah, and we've another message here. So the messages just keep coming through today. Dave here, tell Dinny I too was gigging at a wedding last night and I hit the pillow at 5 a.m, but I couldn't miss the interview. I'll sleep later. Can you ask him? Is now a good time to invest in Bitcoin based on its current price? I've heard him use the phrase bull market. Maybe he could explain it.
Okay, yes. We always want to know, is now a good time to buy Bitcoin? Is it going to go lower? My answer to that is, without giving anyone financial advice, because I'm not a financial advisor, full disclosure, I'm just a Bitcoiner, okay?
Yeah.
So the idea of investing, I'm studying investing I've been investing for over a decade. And the idea of investing, I've done a lot of courses and internships. The idea of investing is you buy low, sell high, okay? Buy low, sell high. Now, Bitcoin was $69,000. Bitcoin today is $22,000. So it's pretty clear to me that it's low. I don't know if it's the absolute very lowest it's going to go, but it's certainly low. So if I'm just going to follow the most basic advice of investor advice, buy low, sell high, well, Bitcoin is lower than it was. Now, to play devil's advocate, people shouldn't be greedy. Basic investment rules again. You shouldn't invest more than you're prepared to lose. Bitcoin could trend to 10,000. So are you prepared to see your investment trend down 50%? Because Bitcoin could. The guarantee with Bitcoin is that it will crash. Okay, it'll rally and it'll crash. But if you look at it for the last 13 years, it's just going. It rallies up. It goes up to the tens. It crashes back. It goes up to the hundreds. It crashes back. It goes up to the thousands. It crashes. It goes up to the tens of thousands. It crashes back to the thousands.
So it's another golden rule.
This isn't going to change.
Yeah, the other golden rule then of investment is time, isn't it? It's, wait the time or invest for the longer you can invest for, the better.
Time in the market. Time in the market beats timing the market.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's time in the market. Another text in saying, education is key, and he's right. Our government have a responsibility for it, because if I was walking down the street and 100,000 people every day were trying to take my pockets, trying to rob me in the street like they are on the digital platforms with texts coming in from banks, etc., then the government would, if you're walking down the street, what basically this text is saying, if I'm walking down the street and every time I went out my front door, somebody was trying to rob me, because that's what happens, isn't it? Like, I get texts constantly from, your card has been compromised from permanent TSB. I don't have a permanent TSB account. And things like, texts like that, click here. So I guess what this texter is saying, if that was happening on a daily basis physically, the government would definitely be educating us on how to protect ourselves. So education is really key.
Yeah, of course. And we can see by that it's not just within crypto that there's scams. It's also through our legacy banking system. The only problem is, and if I could also just say this, because unfortunately I see a lot of horror stories of people who've lost their life savings. If something is too good to be true, it's definitely too good to be true. You never, with Bitcoin, with Crypto With Dinny, I never ask you to send me Bitcoins. I'm never going to trade them for you. Even if you get messages from me, it's someone who's impersonating my profile. They've screenshotted my pictures. It's not me. So never send Bitcoin to anybody. It's 99.99 times out of 100, it's a scam, and you'll never get that Bitcoin back. Okay, if you're going to pay someone euros for education, that's fine. Okay, that's grand, because they're delivering you a product. But don't send someone crypto that is going to trade it for you, and they'll show you pictures of an amazing account with so much money in it, and they're trading it, and you just need to send them some more to get it back. So just be really careful with your life savings. Try and get some education. Start slowly with Bitcoin and digital assets, because if you get scammed in regular banking, like my parents were scammed in a banking scam. Now, the beauty of our system is, because I'm not like banks are bad, we've got to disrupt the banking system. The banking system is amazing, and Bitcoin, although it's a challenge to it, it's not going to disrupt it. They will embrace it and use it to some degree, within a decade. But the banks can undo a scam. You have consumer protection. You don't have that with Bitcoin, not yet. And that's why I always try to warn people about this, because while I'm very passionate about it, it's a very powerful technology. Just like a car is a very powerful technology. You can do good in a car, but you can also be a danger in a car. And Bitcoin is the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Another text here, Dinny. Can you ask Dinny what he thinks about Ethereum? With the merge coming up in September, what effect will that have on the price? And going forward, what way does he think Ethereum will go?
Ethereum has a huge network effect. I'm very pro. I consider myself a Bitcoiner, but we have a term in Bitcoin, and it can be quite toxic where we Bitcoin maximalists, and therefore, anything else is terrible to speak about. With Ethereum has a lot of innovation being built on it. Now, maybe some of that innovation will move to Bitcoin eventually, and it's just a testing ground. But Ethereum has such a huge network effect. It's the second place institutions will look to invest into. And just the network effect alone of Ethereum. While I don't try and figure out short-term price, Ethereum is just another asset that I hold for the long term. And it's had a massive rally, like only in the last couple of weeks. It's rallied almost 50%. But again, I just treat it like Bitcoin. I would treat it with much higher risks than Bitcoin. I would see Bitcoin as a much less risky investment. And everything else beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum, I classify as venture capitalist investing. Now, if you understand how VCs invest, they invest in startup companies. Startup companies have a 90% chance of failure within 5 years, and the second 5 years, it's still 90%. Okay, so altcoins, super high risk. Expect to lose your money. So therefore, you need to understand how to manage that risk, and most people don't. And they come in and they look at the price of Bitcoin and it's 20 grand, and they look at some altcoin and it's a penny, so they go, I'm going to have that instead because Bitcoin is 20, and 20 grand is a lot of money. But to Bitcoin, it makes no difference. Bitcoin is just what money is in the network and divided by 21 million. So Bitcoin's actual price, it doesn't have a high or a low. It's just how many people are using the network, and the price will find itself from that.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely. Just fascinating stuff. Great energy as well, Dinny.
Seriously, this man has been at a wedding. If you hadn't been at a wedding, I don't know how he would have come with the enthusiasm.
Yes, thank you so much. There's still actually a couple of texts coming in. So, I mean, we have to finish up shortly. But so where can people go to carry on the conversation with you, Dinny?
Jump onto any of the socials. I go live on YouTube or Facebook, Crypto with Dinny, YouTube, Crypto with Dinny, Instagram, Crypto with Dinny, Twitter, @Dinny Collins, any of the socials, or jump onto Crypto with Dinny website and get my 5 things to know before you buy Bitcoin and crypto. There are 5 good tips. You can get it on the homepage of the website, and that'll get you into my newsletter as well, or you'll have the ability to reach out if you have any other questions.
Fantastic.
Amazing interview. Thank you so much, Dinny. I hope the bride and groom are having a great time today for their second day of their wedding, and that you get a bit of recovery.
Thanks very much. Nora and Maureen, it was a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for the opportunity to come on and chat Bitcoin. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate your time. Take care, Dinny. And thank you to all of our listeners for getting involved today.
Listen along on your Alexa device. Just say enable Loughrea Community Radio.